Starting.
We're live.
We're alive. Welcome to another installment of iSpring's leadership series, and another great topic, and another great guest here in store for us. And today we have with us Robert Gadd. Robert, tell us who you are.
Hi, Gina. How are you? Happy 2015.
I know, it's crazy. It's almost February.
I know. Where's the year flying by? I'm still writing 2014 on my checks, right?
For some reason, this is the first year, I think, that I just have not had any problems transitioning. Maybe because I don't write as many checks anymore.
Yeah, exactly. We only write a few, right? Hi to everybody. I lead OnPoint's technical vision for our learning solutions. We've got a team of about 30 people, passionate about all things online and mobile, and endeavor to make learning fun and engaging and effective. We've spent the better part of a dozen years or so delving into what mobile is all about for training and performance support and business communications, and try to do interesting and innovative things to keep people, provide them new ways to think about training and becoming a better employee, better whatever it is. So
just be better at everything.
Everybody be better, right?
Everybody be better. So what would you say is the state of mobile right now?
Mobile is coming along. It's certainly getting there, but it's been a long and hard-fought road for all these years. I'm happy that we're at a place that we're starting to ask new questions. It used to be, oh, well, what kind of operating system, and what's your screen size, and
right.
All of those things have sort of faded into the background. I mean, the stage is set. The first world wars of mobile have been fought, and we're now kind of moving into the next realm where it's really about functionality and capabilities. The challenges are matching the expectation with what's possible, but I'm glad to say that things have come a long way.
Yeah, because it has been the year of mobile for the last 3 years.
Yeah. Mobile. This is the year of mobile learning. Has been there every one of the last 7 years for me, probably.
Right. So. This is the year of mobile. This is the year of mobile. It's like win.
Yeah. It's suddenly becoming commonplace. A lot of people listed as a top initiative for them for the coming year. So everybody's kind of buying a vowel on it all. I used to use this interesting slide in a myths and misconceptions seminar that I gave. What is the state of mobile? And I used the analogy of a dwelling, where we live, and we sort of started off, and everyone had this expectation of this was fabulous, 12-bedroom house with a heated driveway and a butler's pantry and everything. That's their level of expectation of what mobile should do. But we were really living in mud huts and tents for a long time. I'm pleased to say that we're probably, all in a nice 3-bedroom ranch, as opposed to
mobile suburbia.
Mobile suburbia, but we still need to pull back the expectation of, something that would be in the Hollywood Hills somewhere for someone that makes $50 million a year. So.
Well, so what do you think? What makes mobile so complicated then?
Well, mobile in and of itself has, it's a constant state of change. There is so many things that we have to get our head around, wrap our head around. Mobile, as it relates to learning, we'll hit on a second, but let's talk about the macro mobile things first. For years, it was, I've got all this courseware that I built, or things that I'm used to doing through a browser, and now I don't have Flash. Everything that used to be Flash doesn't work, and everybody's had to rethink their approach on something as simple as Flash. I think it was a huge day when Steve Jobs 5 years ago said, we will not have Flash on iOS devices, so figure it out, world. And that was validated yesterday when Google came out and YouTube said they're no longer using Flash for YouTube.
Right.
So the world is moving away from the things that certainly held us back. As it relates to learning, though, people have to get their head around it. There's always been, there's a lack of great tools, or there's a lack of books or conferences or proven out research or an understanding of what should work and why. We also have, we've lacked a lot of really great case study examples for other people to point to and say, hey, I want to do what those people did. So we're just now starting to get all of that in place. I think the vendors themselves, that control, especially in the enterprise, the talent management, learning system management vendors, they've paid a lot of lip service to mobile over the years and haven't really put anything in place that's great. Just making access to your current system through a browser, a mobile-compatible browser is not mobile learning
Right.
for most of these folks. So but all the pieces are starting to feel like they're in place, and we're definitely approaching a world where all of this is possible.
Yeah, that is, I mean, there's just so much, like you said, so many moving pieces and so many changes that happen daily that I think it does make it extra challenging. Have you found that to be the greatest challenge, just the ever-changing landscape in the work that you're doing?
I think that we have to reach a place where we accept that these devices are commonplace. This has happened, whether people realize it or not. I think the analysts say within 2 years there'll be 4.5 billion smart devices in service, and globally, and of those, 4 billion of those will be smart devices. Not just so it's handsets, not just the ones you can make a call on or take a text message on.
Right.
It's something that's going to be smart. And believe it or not, most of those are going to be smartphones, not tablets. These are devices we have with us all the time. We look at them 150 times a day. We don't share them with anyone else. They're very personal to us. So, the industry getting its head around, I've got to make things available for people on that device they have in their pocket or purse always, is the reality that everyone has to deal with. And so it's going to require good tools and good approaches in order to make that happen, but also keep it fresh and engaging. And we also probably have to rethink those hour-long page-turner courses of yesterday. That no one's going to have time for that. And they always say you're 3 taps away from 3 taps away from Facebook on anything that you're doing on a phone. So you got to make sure that it's a good enough experience to have people stay.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, like you said, it's now everything focused on your phone versus a tablet. Whereas a couple years ago, you really saw, I think tablet's going to be the one that's going to help bring this, especially to e-learning, because they're bigger screens. But today, our phones have so much bigger real estate that more is done, I think, on our phones than our tablets.
Well, and it's we've certainly realized that it's kind of one of these all of the above equations. I have a tablet and a handset,
Right.
and an ebook reader, and as opposed, and I'm not the odd man out in that.
No.
Everyone's going to be in this situation, so we can't just design for one thing. We have to make sure that these experiences that we build for people are transportable. They bookmark our place from our laptop to our browser world, to our app world, to our ebook world, or whatever it is. You just allow people to move back and forth, because enable them to learn at any time that makes sense for them.
Anywhere, anytime. Yeah, that is the key. Is you've got to prepare. Is that less of a challenge today because you just have the tools available to make them more flexible, or is that still a great challenge?
Things have matured, so we're definitely reaching a place where the world realizes all these pieces need to fit together. Last week, Microsoft had all these great announcements about Windows 10. And Windows 10 as an operating system, first of all, looks great. Hats off to Microsoft, if I had a hat, for coming up with something that was really revolutionary in a lot of ways. But the essence of what they're offering in this upcoming release, and they're beating Apple and Google to the punch here. I've got one operating system that's online, that is tablet and handset, and someone could develop an app once for any of those things, which will appear anywhere. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean anything developed there is going to work in the others, but certainly the tools have matured to the point that these things are becoming possible, and now it can be less about the technology and more about what it is that we're stuffing into that technology, the kind of information we're making available to people.
Yeah, that's got to be really challenging, though, as a developer of tools and programs that you're putting together in e-learning, to really try to think of you're having to really survey your audience. What is the platform we need to design for first, or do you, are they all responsive now so that but across platforms, I'm sure that's still a huge challenge.
Yeah, so things need to be responsive. They need to have tracking support, but at the end of the day, it's we and other vendors have solved many of those challenges, because we've had a lot of time to deal with it. And oh, by the way, it had to be enterprise savvy too. I mean, dealing with security and dealing with integration. Having an app in an app store is not a solution for most enterprises. Can it work the way we want it to work with our proprietary information, especially when it's being sent out to someone's, personally owned device, right? They can't control this universe that's in your pocket.
Right. Well, here's a question that just came across from Keith. Thanks, Keith. And it says, do you think it's better to design a user interface for e-learning that works for both computer and mobile, design a web interface for each, or design an interface for computer and a separate app and interface for mobile?
Great question, Keith. To go back to the responsive capabilities of the interfaces and the apps and the content that lives inside them, we're definitely huge proponents of that. There are a dozen tools out there in the market. Many of them have responsive capabilities or adaptive capabilities, but the goal for a team should be to design things once.
Right.
In our world, we're only dealing with the interfaces. So we've built something that's responsive, that looks good, and it does all of the tricky things that it's supposed to do across handset, tablet, and online. Some tools that create content are going to have responsive capabilities, and we definitely point people in the direction of those tools. Others have a form factor, and I point to iSpring for this, that is fairly universal. You've got a 16:9 or a 4:3 kind of aspect ratio, and that content can actually look good on every device. iSpring is a tool that we recommend to absolutely every customer because it always has a fit. It may not be the most sophisticated way to do, to build these big monolithic courses, but at the end of the day, it's easy to use, it's inexpensive, so it's, we can't recommend it highly enough. And
I'm paying you, Robert.
I'm giving you this, you didn't even ask me to say this. But
no, it's not about us today.
Yeah, it is absolutely a tool that we would say that everyone's going to have in their bag. Now, that doesn't mean it's the only tool, and the things that look good in mobile, think of a video. A video is also it's not responsive, but it's in a certain aspect ratio, and that's going to look good on a small device as long as it's not too much detail in this orientation or that orientation or a tablet or in online. So we definitely see a situation where if you can design it once and go everywhere, that's the best place that you can be.
Would you
if you don't have to get a master's degree to do it, that's even a better place to be.
And is that how you would rate, what makes a great tool? Is it because it is responsive to all these different platforms?
Responsive or adaptive, is a true calling card of something, but something as simple as a PDF, which is not responsive, can be effective. It's just maybe hard to read on certain types of devices. The other part of it, if moving beyond the screen flow and the look and feel, is you get into tracking. So SCORM-based tracking, XAPI-based tracking, that's becoming more popular now. Those are essential, especially when I have multiple access points that I could be coming into the system from. So if I get through 5 slides of something here, then I want to be able to pick it up here or on my computer when I get back to the office. And so tracking is essential to the things that you're going to build. We want to, the goal is to build one thing that gets accessed everywhere. And it could be that the content is downloaded to an app, right?
Right.
And the only way to ensure that my bookmark here is going to be, synced to the server when I get to my desk is, some level of SCORM or XAPI-based tracking.
That makes sense.
Another essential thing. The other thing we'd like to see people do is, the vendors themselves have more templates that people can use as a starting point. It could be templates for, learning. And in the iSpring world, it could be, maybe you guys need to publish a set of templates for that you know is going to look good for the way content is going to be laid out on the page when it's going to be targeted to a handset. So you give us a starting point. Same thing for templates for game-based learning. You know, if you try to do things that are not just informational, but a little bit more engaging, then coming out with a set of things that you publish, we think that could have great advantages. Sort of what the e-learning brothers do for so many other packages.
Right.
I don't know why the vendors themselves don't say, hey, we've looked at all this stuff, we've looked at it on every device, and we think that these templates are the great starting point for somebody.
Okay, e-learning brothers, that was like a throwdown challenge right there.
Well, they have some, but
Right.
if everybody's going to be mobile, if everybody's thinking mobile and it's a mobile first orientation, then everybody start giving us a basis for some of these these templates, these starting points that are going to make it easier for people to succeed in this market.
And it's interesting because Miley, is it Miley? I think it's Millie. Sorry, Millie put a question. I don't know, Millie, if we'll be able to give you the complete answer you're looking for, because she's saying, could you show how to properly set up iSpring Suite quiz to properly send the results? I'm new at this. And see, there's an example of somebody who's new saying, where's the templates, or show me how. And there are, Millie, on YouTube, on the iSpring YouTube channel, there's a lot of tutorials video tutorials that will walk you through kind of the starting phases on things. So hopefully I don't know if you have anything to add, Robert, but I'm guessing, that's kind of a real specific question that's more technical iSpring.
Most of these tools, iSpring included, have, the notion of tracking, anyway, is, if I want SCORM X API, I'm going to tick a box, and when I output the package, it's going to have that support, that manifest file already built into it. So most of the heavy lifting is already done by the vendor.
Right.
But those templates would give you, so that's the last mile of the equation. It'd be nice to have these templates on the front end, that give me the starting point. I know not to put more than 17 words on this slide because it's not going to look good if it's destined for a handset.
Yeah, that's interesting too, knowing what's going to work on the devices. Okay, so in your experience in this, kind of the technology and app development, all those, what would you say, kind of looking back at the long road that you've come, what are some of the main nuggets, the lessons that you've learned or taken away that somebody that's new to this could glean
from? You can't ignore it.
Yeah, that's kind of like,
you can't sort of brush it off under the rug and think, maybe if we don't talk about it, no one will think it's important.
Maybe it's a fad, this whole mobile thing. Maybe people will stop using these.
Yeah, exactly. There'll be something new. We'll all have an implant in our head or something. No, that's not going to happen. Things change. I mean, the constant here is change. And, just think back of what the mobile market looked like 3 or 4 years ago. BlackBerry and Nokia, dominated, and they're not there anymore, in the same way. They're still there, but they don't have the leadership position that they have. 2 years ago, even a year ago, Apple was perceived as, the popularity of Apple devices is waning, and, they're just not around. Well, they just posted the biggest quarter ever, for any company, and from a market share perspective, they equaled Samsung last quarter. They both around something like 19% market share. So it's always going to change. Don't discount Windows and what's coming with Windows 10. So you can't bet on one horse. From a development perspective, you have to have a mindset that whatever you're building may only have a 1 year, 2 year kind of shelf life.
Right.
So you have to pick things that are very flexible, things that are very adaptable in that sense, and you don't. We used to build courses that that we knew could be on the shelf for 10 years or 12 years. That's not going to happen anymore.
Right.
And things have to be really short. This is an interrupt-driven economy. It's an interrupt-driven technology set. I'm always going to get a phone call to pick up milk is going to be more important than the course that I'm sitting in, because this is my personal communications device. So make it very easy to get into and out of things. And do the best that you can to make the experience something that feels as good as any of the other apps that someone's going to download from the store. mobile learning can't be boring. It has to be good. It has to be solid. The interface, everything from the interface, from setting it up to using it, to wanting to use it more often, to getting pushed into it with notifications, all of that stuff is essential. So think it's a moving target, know it's a moving target, always be working on it.
And thank you. Thanks, Joe Gansey. He's actually posting a question to
Hey, Joe.
Millie's question. And then somebody posted a question, but then must have retracted it. But I think it's a good, he said it's a loaded question. And I'm going to let you answer, because he was saying, how does iSpring compare to, I think he said Camtasia. The question went away. Are they, is there benefits? And I'm always like, iSpring is one tool that you're going to need in your bucket, your tool bucket.
Right. And Camtasia is another. To me, Camtasia, another highly recommended tool, is going to be used to help you build, to capture the videos and, to build the video-based components that someone's going to have. The foundation of starting with iSpring is generally PowerPoint, and then I'm associating some other things with it. It's sort of like the classic version of what Articulate did before Storyline. It doesn't necessarily fill, iSpring sits here, Camtasia is sort of a parallel tool to that. You got EPUBs and PDFs that are also part of a mix for people. Then you're going to have other tools like Lectora or Articulate Storyline, or the fantastic Adobe Captivate 8, not 7 or 6 or 5, with respect to mobile, that do things, and I'll toss Claro in there as well. Tools that do have really high-end features and functionality and that are responsive. So it's a tool bag approach. Know that not one thing is going to solve all your problems for you. Figure out what your team uses today, the easiest transition for them to continue to have those projects, or bring the past forward, to leverage some of the skills and things that you've earned in that area. But pick the right approach at the end of the day.
And they definitely are more, they cooperate versus replacing. One does one piece. The question, it was from Keith. Thanks, Keith, for putting that back up there.
It should be invisible to your user too. They shouldn't know that you built one with this and one with that. They just give them a list of things to do, and they're going to go through those and just make it as consistent in look and feel as you possibly can. But your users don't care if they switch from a video to a slide presentation to an interactive piece of content to a sim, as long as it all felt like it was part of the same team's vision for that learning content.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And and I think the key is really, like you're saying, make sure it's seamless to them and make sure it's easy for you. What tools are you using, and which ones make it easiest for you to get the job done?
Right. And start off with the easy stuff. People. I always say that some of these tools have a learning curve similar to law school, and as opposed to something that I can learn on a weekend. I mean, those are the things that you got to start off with in order to get some quick wins.
Right. Yeah. And AJ said he agrees. Yes, Robert, it's all about disruptive innovation, disruptive technology. The words of Clayton Christensen. Very good.
That's right.
Yeah.
Innovator's dilemma, always getting disrupted.
And I think it's just being okay with that in the e-learning space, of just knowing there is no, okay, we're almost to a point where we're going to be done and we can now settle into the spot and use these tools. It's always going to be new.
I only wish, right?
Yeah. But
I live in fear and, in great anticipation and fear of every product announcement from every major vendor, because it's like, oh no, what ships is this going to launch in terms of time and effort and expense for something?
But my question is, would we whine and complain louder if we didn't have changes, because we would say, why aren't they making improvements and changing things for us? Or do we whine and complain when they come out with new and improved changes? So, I just like to whine and complain.
Right, and hopefully everybody figures out a way to, to balance, balance the movement, balance the change, and continue to move forward. You can't rest on your laurels anywhere where mobile's involved.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I can't believe it. We've already been going 25 minutes. Are there any final things, lessons, any wisdom from your brain that we can extract from you as we wrap up?
Jump in. The water's fine, and don't be afraid of this. Somebody asked me a few years ago, and I think we're nearing that point. What's where's mobile learning going to be in 5 years? And I would suggest that, it's not going to exist in the sense that, it's just going to be it's going to be an accepted part of all the things that we do anyway. So whether it's handset or tablet or online or classroom, all of these things are going to blend together. The wearables, it's just going to be another way to access the same communities, the same information, and hopefully leverage knowledge. So, but don't wait. Don't stay on the sidelines. The train is leaving the station, so jump on.
Don't wait until you think it's going to be at a place where it's stable enough to then jump on. It's like you've got to just be running with it and learning as you go.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So fabulous. Well, and I would say definitely make sure you're plugging into the e-learning communities. And I'm speaking to the choir because those who are listening are, they're connecting here on Google+, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. But definitely, I think it's important for people to stay in this community where they're sharing what's working, what's not, sharing best practices. And everybody, it must be like last call at a bar. I just said we were wrapping up, and look, like flood of questions. Like you said, so Alan says, like you said, I'm planning to make interactive videos and games for e-learning. How short or simple games would you suggest? Is there an ideal length, or people have such short attention spans?
Mm-hmm. I would say that. Well, on the interactive video, that's definitely something that's coming up, and tools like Camtasia actually have features and functionality to put that in there. Regarding the ideal length of something, it's got to be short, but the opposite side of that is I've seen videos that are an hour long or audio podcasts that are 45 minutes long that people will listen to. You just have to make it very easy to get into it and to bookmark it, so when you come back later after you got interrupted, that you can pick back up again. So
that's a great point. Yeah, it can be longer as long as people can come back.
Yeah, and in some countries, this may be the only computer that anyone ever has, so they're going to spend an hour if it takes an hour. They may do it in 5-minute spurts over a week, but they'll spend the hour eventually.
That's actually a really good tip. Probably one of the better takeaways of all of these nuggets is just know the user's behavior of leaving and coming back, and making it not where they have to start back from the beginning.
Back to my point on STORM and XAPI, make sure the bookmarking is there. So.
Right, that's a good one. Andre asked, is there any way to deal with the software limitation or problem of converting an animated chart as one image and not being able to take advantage of converting PowerPoint slides using effect option sequence by a series or category or both? That may be, I don't know if that's too specific.
Longer questions, if you want to send me an email or send us both an email, I'm happy to answer these things offline. rgadd@mlearning.com. So been in mlearning long enough that I have that domain. But the quick answer to your question is complex charts and graphs are not something that's mobile friendly. You really don't want people pinching and zooming to do things. You really want to rethink some of that information. The nicest way to do something like that is really more in a process flow. You have a flow that goes through, and a person can use the scrolling technique to get to it, and that's actually not a bad experience on a handset.
On a handset. See, good way to summarize that. And Keith is saying, thanks, great webinar. Now more to consider. And Joe kind of sums it up for us. Joe says, I'd very much like to rest on my laurels. So Joe, let's all today, and maybe just through Saturday, let's all rest on our laurels.
Very good.
Well, Robert, thank you
Thanks,
so much. Thank you for your time, and thank you everyone for joining us on this hangout. Very fun, and we'll be putting out information because Joe is going to be one of our Google Hangouts. Yeah, so
I'll come hang with Joe too. So
yes, we're going to be getting you on here. So thank you. Thanks everyone, and until next time, stay plugged in with us on iSpring's social sites everywhere, and post your questions, and we'll get those answers out to you. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thanks, Gina.
Bye.